What kind of person walks into a nail salon, claims to own it, and demands free service while threatening the staff with their jobs? Karen Mitchell did exactly that, striding into gloss and glam on a humid Thursday afternoon, her heels clicking with the confidence of someone who believed the world owed her everything. The Salon, a cozy haven on the edge of downtown, buzzed with the usual rhythm of chatter, the hum of nail drills, and the faint scent of acetone. Karen, with her perfectly pressed blouse and a purse that screamed money, didn't hesitate. She marched past the reception desk, ignored the curious glances from customers, and planted herself in a cushioned chair at the station of Lynn, a soft-spoken technician known for her intricate designs. "I'm the new owner," Karen declared, her voice cutting through the salon's hum like a knife. "I expect a full set, acrylics, no charge. And make it quick. I have a meeting." Lynn froze, her hands hovering over a bottle of polish. The other technicians exchanged wary glances. No one had heard of a new owner. Gloss and Glam was a family business, run by Mrs. Tran for over a decade. But Karen's tone carried an authority that made doubt feel dangerous. Lynn, unsure but trained to please, nodded and began prepping her tools, her heart thudding with unease. Karen leaned back, scrolling through her phone, occasionally barking orders. "Not that color. Do you even know what you're doing?" The salon's atmosphere shifted, the air growing heavy with tension. Customers whispered, sensing something off, but no one spoke up. Not yet. Karen's demands grew louder, her complaints sharper. She criticized Lynn's technique, claiming she'd seen better work at a strip mall. Lynn's hands trembled, but she kept working, her pride stinging. By the time the acrylics were done, Karen's nails were flawless, but her attitude had left a crack in the salon's usual warmth. She stood, inspecting her nails with a smirk, then tossed her hair and said, "Not bad for a freebie. I'll be back to check on you all. Don't disappoint me." She left without a thank you, the bell above the door jingling mockingly in her wake. Lynn stared at the empty chair, her chest tight with a mix of anger and humiliation. The other technicians gathered around, murmuring. Something wasn't right. Mrs. Tran, who was out of town for the week, would never sell the salon without telling them. Lynn's cousin Min, who helped manage the books, pulled out her phone and started digging. A quick search on the salon's public records showed no change in ownership. Karen's name didn't appear anywhere. Min's eyes narrowed. "She's lying," she whispered, her voice trembling with realization. The team huddled, piecing together the audacity of it all. Karen hadn't just scammed a free manicure. She'd bullied her way into it, banking on their fear and deference. Lynn's hands curled into fists. She'd spent years honing her craft, pouring her heart into every design, only to be treated like a servant in her own workplace. The betrayal burned. Min, fiery and quick-witted, suggested checking Karen's social media. A few taps later, they found her. Karen Mitchell, a local influencer with a modest following, known for posting about luxury lifestyles she clearly couldn't afford. Her latest post boasted a photo of her new acrylics, captioned, "Perks of being the boss at Gloss and Glam. Nail goals." The audacity was staggering. Lynn's stomach churned as she read the comments. Strangers congratulating Karen, oblivious to the lie. Min's jaw tightened. "She's not getting away with this," she said, her voice low but resolute. They needed proof, a plan, something to expose Karen for what she was. The salon closed early that night, the team staying late to strategize. Lynn, usually reserved, felt a spark of defiance ignite. This wasn't just about a free manicure. It was about respect, about standing up to someone who thought they could walk over others without consequence. They decided to dig deeper, to watch Karen's moves, and to wait for her inevitable return. She'd promised to come back, after all, and when she did, they'd be ready. The next morning, Gloss and Glam opened with a quiet intensity. Lynn and Min had spent the night combing through Karen's online presence, uncovering a pattern. Karen wasn't just a one-time scammer. She'd pulled similar stunts at a boutique, a cafe, even a yoga studio, always posing as someone important to score freebies or discounts. Reviews on obscure forums painted her as a charming but ruthless opportunist, slipping through cracks with a smile and a lie. Lynn felt a chill reading about a barista who'd been fired after Karen claimed he disrespected the owner. The stakes were higher than they'd thought. If Karen could ruin lives to keep up her facade, what would she do when cornered? Min, ever the strategist, suggested setting a trap. She'll come back, Min said, her eyes glinting. Let's give her what she wants, until she can't lie her way out. They looped in the other technicians, who were equally furious. Together, they crafted a plan. They'd let Karen think she was in control, then turn the tables. Lynn practiced her lines, her voice steadying with each rehearsal. She wasn't just fighting for herself. She was fighting for every worker who'd ever been belittled or used. By noon, Karen swept back in, this time in a sleek blazer, her demeanor even bolder. "I'm here for a pedicure," she announced, dropping into a chair without waiting for an invitation. "And I expect perfection this time." Lynn forced a smile, her heart racing. She began the pedicure, playing along, while Min subtly recorded from the counter, her phone propped against a stack of towels. Karen, oblivious, rambled about her ownership duties, dropping vague threats about cleaning house if the staff didn't meet her standards. The other technicians played their parts, nodding politely, their eyes sharp with purpose. Then came the twist. A regular customer, Mrs. Nguyen, walked in. She was a no-nonsense grandmother who'd known Mrs. Tran for years and had a knack for sniffing out nonsense. Min had tipped her off earlier, and Mrs. Nguyen was ready to stir the pot. She approached Karen's chair, her voice loud enough to draw attention. "You're the new owner?" she asked, her tone skeptical. "Funny, Mrs. Tran never mentioned selling. Been coming here 10 years, and I know every inch of this place." Karen's smile faltered, but she recovered quickly. "It was a recent deal," she said smoothly. "Private transaction." Mrs. Nguyen raised an eyebrow, unconvinced, and pressed further, asking for details Karen couldn't possibly know. The salon grew quiet, customers craning their necks. Lynn kept working, her hands steady, but her pulse thundered. Karen's lies were unraveling, and Mrs. Nguyen's relentless questions were the perfect catalyst. Karen's voice grew sharper, her composure cracking as she snapped. "Mind your own business, lady." The room gasped. Mrs. Nguyen didn't flinch. "This is my business," she shot back. "And you know, owner." The confrontation hung in the air, electric and precarious. Min's camera caught every second, the lens capturing Karen's flushed face and the growing unease in her eyes. Lynn glanced at Min, a silent signal passing between them. They had enough to expose her, but they needed to push further to make sure Karen couldn't wiggle out. Min stepped forward, her phone now in hand, and said, "Maybe we should call Mrs. Tran to confirm your story." Karen's eyes widened, just for a moment, before she doubled down. "Go ahead," she bluffed, but her voice wavered. The salon was a pressure cooker, every eye on Karen, waiting for her next move. Lynn kept her focus on the pedicure, her hands moving with deliberate calm. But inside, she was ready for the storm about to break. The standoff in gloss and glam crackled with unspoken accusations. Karen sat rigid in the pedicure chair, her freshly painted toes gleaming under the salon's lights, but her face betrayed a flicker of panic. Min's threat to call Mrs. Tran hung heavy, and the room seemed to hold its breath. Lynn, still working on Karen's pedicure, felt the weight of every glance in the salon. Customers, technicians, even Mrs. Nguyen, who stood with her arms crossed, her eyes boring into Karen like a judge awaiting a verdict. Min dialed Mrs. Tran's number, putting the call on speaker for all to hear. The ringing echoed, each tone tightening the knot in Karen's facade. When Mrs. Tran answered, her warm voice filled the room. "Min, everything okay?" Min didn't waste time. "Mrs. Tran, we've got someone here claiming to be the new owner. Says she bought the salon. Her name's Karen Mitchell." A pause, then Mrs. Tran's laugh, sharp and disbelieving. "Owner? I've never heard of her. Gloss and glam's mine, always has been." The room erupted in murmurs. Karen's face drained of color, her lips parting as if to speak, but no words came. Min pressed on, her voice steady but laced with fire. "She's been getting free services, saying she's in charge. Mrs. Tran's tone hardened. Put her on. Min held the phone toward Karen, who stared at it like it was a loaded gun. Go on, Min said, her voice daring Karen to try. Karen's bravado crumbled. She stammered, there's been a misunderstanding. But the excuse sounded hollow, even to her. Mrs. Nguyen stepped closer, her voice cutting through the tension. Misunderstanding? You lied to these girls, bullied them for free work. That's no mistake, that's a scam. Customers nodded, their whispers turning to bold agreement. Lynn, still kneeling at Karen's feet, felt a surge of courage. The fallout was swift and merciless. By morning, Karen's social media accounts were flooded with notifications, angry comments, memes, even a hashtag, Karen the Fraud. The viral video from Gloss and Glam had spread beyond their small town, picked up by local influencers and even a news outlet covering scammer stories. Karen's carefully curated online persona, glamorous, successful, untouchable, cracked under the weight of the truth. Her posts, once filled with praise from her small circle of followers, now drowned in accusations. Lynn and Min watched the chaos unfold from the salon, their phones buzzing with updates. Customers came in not just for manicures, but to talk about the video, to praise the staff for standing up. Yet Lynn felt uneasy. Exposing Karen had been necessary, but the online storm was growing darker. Some comments called for Karen to lose everything. Her job, her reputation, her dignity. Lynn hadn't wanted that. She'd wanted accountability, not destruction. Min, however, was unapologetic. She brought this on herself, she said, her fingers flying across her phone as she responded to supporters. But even Min paused when a new post surfaced, a blurry photo of Karen outside her apartment, head down, clearly unaware of the camera. The caption read, "Spotted, Karen hiding from her lies." It felt invasive, cruel. Lynn's stomach twisted. Had they gone too far? The salon buzzed with its usual rhythm, but the victory felt hollow. Mrs. Tran returned that afternoon, her presence grounding the team. She hugged Lynn tightly, praising her courage, then gathered the staff for a meeting. You did the right thing, she said, her voice firm but warm. But we don't stoop to her level. We protect our own, not destroy others. Her words hit Lynn hard. They'd exposed Karen to protect the salon, but the internet's wrath was something else entirely. Min, still fiery, argued that Karen deserved it, but Mrs. Tran shook her head. Justice isn't vengeance, she said. We've made our point. Now we move on. That night, Lynn couldn't sleep. She kept replaying the confrontation, Karen's panicked eyes, Sarah's unexpected revelation. She wondered about Karen's life, what drove her to lie so boldly, to hurt others for a fleeting gain. Was it desperation? Arrogance? Lynn didn't know, but she couldn't shake the feeling that the story wasn't finished. The next day, a new twist emerged. Karen posted an apology video. It was shaky, her makeup smudged, her voice trembling. I made a mistake, she said, avoiding the camera's gaze. I never meant to hurt anyone. I'm sorry. The comments were brutal, calling it crocodile tears, but Lynn felt a pang of empathy. She didn't trust Karen, but she knew pain when she saw it. Min scoffed, dismissing the apology as damage control, but Lynn wasn't so sure. The video, Din Cleo, wasn't over, but the tide was turning. People were starting to feel sorry for Karen, calling the salon's video bullying. The narrative was shifting, and Lynn worried they'd be painted as the villains. Mrs. Tran, sensing the tension, decided to take down the original post, hoping to quell the fire. But the damage was done. Karen's life was unraveling, and Gloss and Glam was caught in the crossfire. Lynn felt the weight of it all, wondering if standing up for themselves had been worth the cost. The salon's reputation was at stake, and so was their peace. Yet deep down, she knew they had no choice. Karen had crossed a line, and they'd fought back to protect their own. Still, the question lingered. Had they won, or had they lost something bigger? The salon's phone rang non-stop the next day, reporters and curious locals fishing for details. Mrs. Tran handled them with grace, deflecting questions while keeping the focus on business as usual. But the undercurrent of tension was undeniable. Lynn noticed fewer appointments, a subtle dip in the usual bustle. Some customers whispered about the drama, casting sidelong glances at the staff. Min, usually unshakable, grew quiet, her eyes glued to her phone, tracking the online fallout. The hashtag Karen the Fraud was still trending, but now there were threads defending Karen, painting her as a victim of a mob. Lynn felt the narrative slipping further out of control. She wanted to believe they'd done the right thing, but the collateral damage was piling up. A local blog published an article questioning the salon's ethics, accusing them of public shaming over a misunderstanding. Min slammed her phone down. Misunderstanding? She lied to our faces. Lynn nodded, but her heart wasn't in it. She kept seeing Karen's tear-streaked face in that apology video, the way her hand shook. It didn't erase what Karen had done, but it humanized her in a way Lynn hadn't expected. The team met again that evening, the mood somber. Mrs. Tran laid out the situation bluntly. The salon's reputation was taking a hit, and they needed to rebuild trust. She proposed a community event, free nail art for kids, a way to show their heart. Lynn liked the idea, but it felt like a Band-Aid on a deeper wound. The real problem was the story's life of its own, fueled by strangers who didn't know the full truth. Then came another blow. Karen filed a defamation lawsuit against the salon. The news hit like a gut punch. Min laughed bitterly, calling it a desperate move, but Lynn's stomach sank. Lawsuits were expensive, draining, even if they won. Mrs. Tran remained calm, assuring the team she'd handle it. But Lynn could see the worry in her eyes. That night, Lynn scrolled through Karen's social media, now mostly deleted. One post remained, a photo of her with a dog, both looking happy. It was jarring, a glimpse of a person beyond the scam. Lynn couldn't reconcile it with the woman who'd humiliated her. Was Karen a monster, or just broken? The question gnawed at her. The next morning, a surprise visitor arrived. Sarah, the former co-worker who'd exposed Karen's past. She apologized for her part in the escalation, explaining she'd acted on impulse, caught up in the moment. I didn't mean for it to blow up like this, she said, her voice heavy with guilt. Lynn thanked her for her honesty, but it didn't ease the weight. Sarah's revelation had been the spark that turned a confrontation into a public spectacle. Lynn began to see the chain of choices. Karen's lie, their video, Sarah's bombshell, that had led to this mess. Each felt justified at the time, but together, they'd created a storm no one could control. The lawsuit loomed larger as the day wore on. Mrs. Tran hired a lawyer, a quiet man who warned that the case could drag on, even if it was weak. Min vented her frustration, insisting they countersue, but Mrs. Tran shut it down. We're not her, she said firmly. We defend, we don't attack. Lynn admired her restraint, but wondered if it was enough. The internet wasn't kind. It thrived on blood, not reason. By evening, Lynn made a decision. She messaged Karen privately, not to forgive, but to understand. Why did you do it? She wrote. The reply came hours later, short and raw. I thought I could get away with it. I'm sorry. Lynn stared at the words, her anger tangled with pity. The salon was fighting for its name, but Karen was fighting for her life. Both sides were losing, and no one was winning. The community event was a small success, with kids laughing as Lynn painted tiny flowers and stars on their nails. The salon buzzed with lightness for the first time in days, but the shadow of the lawsuit lingered. Lynn kept Karen's message to herself, unsure what to make of it. The apology felt genuine, but it didn't undo the damage. Min, still furious, pushed for a public response to the lawsuit, but Mrs. Tran held firm. No more fuel on the fire. The lawyer was working on a defense, citing the video as evidence of Karen's deception, but the legal battle was already draining their resources. Customers started returning, drawn by the positive buzz of the event, but some still whispered about the Karen drama. Lynn overheard one say, "They shouldn't have posted that video. It was too much." The words stung. She'd thought exposing Karen was justice, but now she saw how it had spiraled, turning the salon into a target. Min, ever defiant, argued they had to fight back online, but Lynn wasn't so sure. The internet wasn't a courtroom. It was a circus. That afternoon, A reporter from a local paper came by, asking for their side. Mrs. Tran gave a measured statement, emphasizing the salon's commitment to honesty and community. But Lynn could tell the story was already set, a small business versus a misunderstood woman. The narrative was slipping further, and Lynn felt powerless to stop it. She kept thinking about Karen's message, the rawness of it. She didn't want to feel sorry for her, but she couldn't help it. Karen's life was in tatters, her job, her reputation gone. Lynn wondered if they'd pushed too hard, if there'd been another way. The thought haunted her as she cleaned her station, the familiar routine grounding her. That evening, Min showed her a new development, a crowdfunding page for Karen's legal fees, claiming she was a victim of online harassment. It had raised thousands. Lynn's heart sank. The public was turning, and the salon was losing ground. Mrs. Tran called another meeting, her voice steady but tired. "We stick to our truth," she said. "We didn't lie. We didn't cheat. We protected our home." Lynn nodded, but doubt gnawed at her. Had they protected their home, or had they invited chaos? The next day, Lynn received another message from Karen. "I'm dropping the lawsuit," it read. "I can't keep fighting. I just want this to end." Lynn stared at the screen, her emotions a tangle of relief and guilt. She showed it to Mrs. Tran, who sighed deeply. "Good," she said, "but the damage is done." The news spread quickly, and the online tide began to shift again. Some praised the salon for standing their ground, while others criticized them for ruining Karen. Lynn felt caught in the middle, her sense of justice warped by the chaos. She realized the real cost wasn't the money or the lawsuit. It was the toll on their spirit. Min, still angry, vowed to keep fighting online, but Lynn urged her to let it go. "We've won," she said softly, "but we've lost something too." Min didn't argue, but her silence spoke volumes. The salon carried on, but the air felt heavier, the team quieter. Lynn looked at her tools, her hand steady but her heart not. They'd stood up for themselves, but the world had judged them anyway. The truth, it seemed, wasn't enough. Weeks passed, and gloss and glam found a fragile rhythm. The lawsuit's withdrawal eased the financial strain, but the salon's name still carried a faint stain. Lynn threw herself into her work, finding solace in the delicate art of nail design. Customers returned in greater numbers, drawn by the salon's resilience and Mrs. Tran's quiet dignity. Yet Lynn couldn't shake the lessons of the ordeal. She'd learned that standing up for yourself didn't always feel like victory, that truth could be drowned out by noise. Karen's social media went silent, her online presence erased. Lynn wondered where she was, what she was doing. The apology messages lingered in her mind, a reminder that even the worst people were human. One morning, a new customer came in, a young woman named Tara, who'd seen the viral video. "You guys are heroes," she said, her eyes bright. "You didn't let her walk over you." Lynn smiled, but it felt forced. Heroes didn't feel this heavy. Tara's words, though kind, didn't erase the sleepless nights, the doubt, the fear of losing everything they'd built. Min, softened by time, admitted she'd been too quick to post the video. "I just wanted her to pay," she said, her voice low. Lynn nodded, understanding the impulse but wishing they'd chosen differently. Mrs. Tran, ever the anchor, reminded them of their strength. "We're still here," she said. "That's what matters." Lynn took it to heart, but she knew the scars would remain. The salon hosted another community event, this time for single mothers, offering free manicures and a space to relax. The laughter and gratitude filled Lynn with a quiet pride, a reminder of why they fought in the first place. As she painted a delicate rose on a client's nail, she felt a spark of hope. They'd been knocked down, but they'd risen stronger, wiser. The world might not fully understand, but Gloss and Glam was more than a business. It was a family, a community, a stand against those who took without giving. Lynn thought of Karen one last time, hoping she'd found a way to start over, to face her own truth. For Lynn, the path forward was clear. Keep creating, keep caring, keep standing tall. The salon's bell jingled as a new customer walked in, and Lynn smiled, ready to begin again. The fight had changed them, but it hadn't broken them. They'd learned to protect their own without losing their heart, to rise above the chaos with grace. And that, Lynn realized, was the real victory.